The birth of my first son transformed me. Not only did I get a new title, Father, Dad, Papa, which you never used, but Dad. I started thinking about what would happen when I had to go about educating my son, my firstborn. And immediately what came to mind was this idea of vocation, of calling, of teaching my son that you have talents, you have gifts. And somewhere these talents and gifts are going to meet the world's needs, and that's your calling. So, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I imagined my son going, well, what did you want to be when you grew up? Well, when I was 16, I thought about being a priest. Have you done anything about being a priest? No. I imagine that conversation, which was half my fictional imaginary son and half God, trying to get me, off the dime and do something about things. It took a long time, but my son's birth had a hand in transforming me into a priest, in claiming my vocation. Because I was wondering about that moment when I would have to account for myself to my own son. And having to do that changed me. Love. The love I had for my son, this relationship that I had with this newborn life, changed me. Now, we're usually willing to accept change and transformation on some level, but what if God's love is never done with us? What if transformation within relationship continues to happen despite how much we might want to resist it? What if by claiming that love, we might live into it, and then all of the transformations that come from it? Because we see here in today's gospel, Jesus at perhaps his most miraculous. Outside of the resurrection and the transfiguration, this is Jesus at his most powerful and miraculous, threatening the economic order, the social order, the religious order, the political order. And what do people do? They try to arrest it, change it, and control it. What if we responded differently to the miraculous love in our lives and let it continue to transform us? Look at each of the responses. Look at this first miracle. This is the fourth sign in John's gospel. So the disciples have already seen the miraculous at work. This isn't the first time he's multiplied food. He multiplied, changed water into wine, created abundance, fed a whole... Jesus' first miracle was a beer well. Let's all be honest. They've already seen the wedding at Cana. They've already seen healings. They've already been with the disciples. They've already been with Jesus' disciples. They've seen what he can do. And yet this miracle is one step beyond that. He multiplies food and is able to feed a crowd of 5,000 people with 12 baskets left over and more. This threatens the economic order, because if you can just multiply food, who needs to go buy things? Who needs a marketplace? It threatens the religious order, because Jesus is not going to the temple for Passover. He's doing something by the Sea of Galilee with ordinary people, possibly Gentiles. It threatens the order of things. And the first thing that people think to do is make him king. He saw that they were going to take him by force and make him king, and so he withdrew. We're only too happy to welcome transformation so long as the order of things in our lives, so long as the majority of the status quo remains. They're happy for this kind of threat to the economic and social and political order, so long as he takes his rightful place in that order. We do this similarly in our own lives and relationships. We're happy for love to change us a little bit. We're happy for a job change, so long as it's the one we want. We're happy for great and wonderful change in our lives, so long as it stops transforming us at a certain point. I'm happy to be a dad, but then I'm done, right? We're never quite done with God's love. And God's love is never quite done with us. What if we responded differently, not by trying to keep things the way they are, but opened ourselves up to the way that things could be? There's more to be done with Jesus than just make him king, isn't there? Change in our lives should be welcome. Not only at the first instance, but every transformation after that. Because God's love is never done. The disciples get another chance to respond to God's love, to God's transformative power. When they see Jesus Christ, walking on water. Not only is Jesus threatening or changing the economic or calling attention to the social order and the political order, he's now calling attention to the natural order at his feet. Jesus walks on water. What is the disciples' response? They're terrified, and they immediately want to get him into the boat. At least that's John's version. I like the other versions, the one where Peter gets into the water too. Because, you see this miraculous sign of Jesus' divinity. You see that he can not only challenge the political order, the social order, remake the world in its entirety, but remake the world in its entirety. He threatens the natural order too. Physics are at the mercy of this man. And the first thing they want to do is curtail the miracle. Get him in the boat. Because he can't possibly be doing what he's doing. Sometimes we're willing to welcome change into our lives, provided it's in a way we can control. And other times, it completely terrifies us. And other times, we want it to end as soon as it's happening. We want to get change into the boat as quickly as possible so that things remain as they are. But what if we reacted differently? What if when God's love came to us, we weren't so terrified? What if when change that we would normally welcome came to us, we weren't afraid? We didn't try and get it back into the boat, but we followed it to see where it led. We followed Jesus to see where he leads. There's something here about God's transformative love, that love is transforming. That these miracles change the world around them, calling us to the one who changes them to begin with, who created them to begin with. There's something about God's love moving in and through the world to change it. And our response to that is usually to try and control it or to end it. What can we do to live into God's love? To live into that transformation, to live into all the transformations that love gives us? I think it is in part by declaring love where you find it. To open yourself up to all of the transformations that love will provide. After all, I didn't just become a parent. Now I'm a parent all the time. Always changing. When you get married, you're now a spouse, but the work of love is not done. So declare it. Open yourself up to declaring it. Tell your loved ones how much you love them. Tell your neighbors how much you care. Tell a friend how much they mean to you. Don't be afraid to talk, to declare what it is that God has done in your life, what God is doing with this love, and how much you care as a result. You find out how much you take for granted when it comes to love, when you're forced or pushed or encouraged to actually declare it. It's time to tell other people how we feel, because we're not going to welcome God's transforming love if we can't identify it. We're not going to welcome God's transforming love if we can't have awkward conversations, if we can't change people's religious ideas or political thoughts, or convince others of our position if we don't tell them how much they mean to us, whether or not they share our political views. We're not going to be able to talk to our neighbors, talk to our friends, talk to our loved ones if we can't tell them how much we care, if we can't show them how much we care. And so I encourage you to tell them how you feel. Because it's only when we tell others how we feel, whether we're living into God's transformative love, and we open ourselves up to all of the transformations that God has in store for us. Because God's love is never done with us. There's nothing we can do to separate ourselves from God's love. And there's nothing we can do to put off God's transformation for us. So instead of trying to put it in a bottle or back in the boat or fearing it, let's welcome it along with our loved ones, in care and grace and love. Tell them how you feel. The miraculous follows.